On August 6, 1945, the world changed forever. A blinding flash over the Japanese city of Hiroshima announced the dawn of the atomic age. It was a moment that would forever be etched in the annals of history, a chilling testament to the destructive power of humanity's own creation. The bombing of Hiroshima, a bustling city of over 350,000 people, marked a turning point in World War II and ushered in a new era of global anxiety and uncertainty. Hiroshima, before the bomb, was a vital industrial and military center. It served as the headquarters of the Japanese Second Army and housed numerous military units. The city was also home to crucial war industries, including shipyards and factories. This made it a strategic target for the Allies, but nothing could have prepared the world for the devastation that would unfold. The bomb, codenamed Little Boy, instantly transformed Hiroshima into a desolate wasteland, leaving behind a legacy of death, destruction, and unanswered questions that continue to haunt humanity to this day. The bombing of Hiroshima remains a deeply controversial event. Some argue that it was a necessary evil that ultimately saved lives by forcing Japan's surrender. Others condemn it as an act of barbarism, a war crime that unleashed a weapon of unimaginable horror upon innocent civilians. Regardless of which side of the debate one falls on, the bombing of Hiroshima serves as a stark reminder of the human capacity for both destruction and resilience. It is a story that demands to be told and retold, lest we forget the lessons of that fateful day. To truly understand the events of August 6, 1945, we must first journey back to the years leading up to that fateful day. World War II, a global conflict of unprecedented scale and brutality, had been raging for years. The Pacific Theater, where the United States and Japan were locked in a deadly struggle for supremacy, was particularly brutal. Japan, driven by a militaristic government and a belief in its own cultural superiority, had embarked on a campaign of expansion throughout Asia. The attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 had plunged the United States into the war, and the ensuing years saw a series of bloody battles as American forces fought their way across the Pacific, island by island. By 1945, the tide of the war had turned. Japan, though tenacious, was clearly on the losing side. American forces were closing in on the Japanese home islands, and the prospect of a costly invasion loomed large. Yet Japan refused to surrender, clinging to a warrior code that valued death over dishonor. The American leadership, faced with the daunting prospect of a prolonged and bloody invasion, began to consider alternative options. It was against this backdrop of escalating violence and dwindling options that the Manhattan Project came into fruition. This top-secret research program, initiated by the United States with support from the United Kingdom and Canada, had been racing against time to develop the atomic bomb. What had begun as a theoretical possibility in the minds of brilliant scientists had now become a terrifying reality, a weapon of unimaginable destructive power. The decision to use this weapon, a decision with ramifications that would echo through history, was a heavy one, fraught with moral and ethical dilemmas. The 509th Composite Group, stationed at Wendover Airfield in Utah, was tasked with the grim responsibility of delivering this terrifying new weapon. Among them was Colonel Paul Tibbets, a seasoned bomber pilot who had flown missions in both the European and Pacific theaters. Tibbets, chosen for his exceptional skills and calm demeanor, was given command of a B-29 Superfortress bomber, a massive aircraft capable of carrying the heavy atomic bomb. He named the plane Enola Gay after his mother. On August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay, carrying the Little Boy atomic bomb, took off from Tinian Island in the Mariana Islands. The crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and young men barely old enough to shave, were acutely aware of the gravity of their mission. They were about to unleash a force the world had never seen, a force that promised to change the course of history. The flight to Hiroshima was tense, the silence broken only by the drone of the engines and the crackle of radio chatter. As the Enola Gay approached its target, the crew went through their final checklists. The bombardier, Major Thomas Farabee, peered through his bomb sight, aiming for the Iowa Bridge, a distinctive T-shaped bridge in the heart of the city. The fate of Hiroshima, and perhaps the world, hung in the balance. The moment of truth was fast approaching. At 8:15 a.m. local time, Little Boy was released from the bomb bay of the Enola Gay. The bomb, a uranium gun-type fission weapon, fell for approximately 43 seconds before detonating 1,965 feet above the city. The world had never witnessed such a spectacle, and hopefully, it never will again. The explosion, equivalent to approximately 15,000 tons of TNT, instantly generated a blinding flash of light and an unimaginable wave of heat. Temperatures at the hypocenter, the point directly beneath the explosion, reached millions of degrees Celsius. Everything within a 2-kilometer radius was vaporized instantly, leaving nothing but shadows etched onto the ground. Buildings were pulverized, their remains scattered like dust on a windy day. The shock wave, traveling faster than the speed of sound, radiated outwards from the hypocenter, leveling everything in its path. Buildings miles from the epicenter crumbled, their windows shattering into a million pieces. Trees were uprooted, their trunks stripped bare by the searing heat. The air itself ignited, creating a firestorm that raged through the city, consuming everything in its wake. In the immediate aftermath of the explosion, Hiroshima was transformed into a scene of unimaginable devastation. The once vibrant city, teeming with life, was now a smoldering ruin. A thick black cloud of smoke and debris billowed into the sky, casting a pall over the devastated landscape. Those who had been fortunate enough to survive the initial blast emerged from shelters or the rubble of their homes to a nightmarish landscape. The air was thick with the smell of burning flesh and scorched earth. The ground was littered with the dead and dying, their bodies mangled beyond recognition. Survivors, many of them severely burned and wounded, wandered aimlessly through the ruins, their cries for help echoing through the desolate streets. The scale of the destruction was unprecedented. The official death toll released months later estimated that between 70,000 and 80,000 people had died instantly. Thousands more would succumb to their injuries and radiation sickness in the weeks and months that followed. Hospitals, overwhelmed by the sheer number of casualties and lacking adequate supplies, struggled to cope with the influx of patients. The world had entered a new and terrifying chapter. The bombing of Hiroshima had profound and long-lasting consequences, not only for Japan, but for the entire world. On August 9, 1945, just 3 days after Hiroshima, the United States dropped a second atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Nagasaki, further solidifying the devastating power of this new weapon. Faced with unimaginable destruction and the threat of further attacks, Japan announced its surrender on August 15, 1945, bringing World War II to an end. The use of atomic bombs on Japan ushered in the nuclear age, a period marked by both technological advancement and existential dread. The world now lived in the shadow of the bomb, aware that humanity possessed the capability to destroy itself many times over. The Cold War, a geopolitical standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union, further intensified this fear, as both superpowers amassed vast nuclear arsenals. Beyond the geopolitical ramifications, the bombing of Hiroshima had a devastating and long-lasting impact on the health of the survivors. Many suffered from radiation sickness, a debilitating illness caused by exposure to high levels of radiation. Cancer rates among survivors skyrocketed in the years following the bombing, a grim reminder of the long-term health consequences of nuclear weapons. The physical and psychological scars of that fateful day continue to haunt survivors to this day, a testament to the enduring legacy of Hiroshima. The bombing of Hiroshima remains one of the most controversial events in human history. The debate over whether it was a military necessity or a morally reprehensible act has raged for decades. Proponents of the bombing argue that it was necessary to force Japan's unconditional surrender and prevent a costly invasion of the Japanese home islands. They contend that the bombing ultimately saved lives, both American and Japanese, by bringing a swift end to the war. Opponents of the bombing condemn it as a war crime, an act of barbarism that indiscriminately targeted civilians. They argue that Japan was already on the verge of surrender and that the bombing was unnecessary. They point to the horrific suffering of the Hibakusha, the survivors of the bombing, as evidence of the devastating human cost of nuclear weapons. The debate over Hiroshima is complex and multifaceted, with no easy answers. It requires a careful consideration of the historical context, the military situation at the time, and the ethical implications of using atomic weapons against civilian populations. It is a debate that continues to resonate today, as the world grapples with the ongoing threat posed by nuclear weapons. Hiroshima stands as a stark reminder of the human capacity for both immense destruction and remarkable resilience. The city, once reduced to rubble, has risen from the ashes, a testament to the indomitable spirit of its people. Yet the scars of that fateful day remain, etched into the landscape and the memories of those who survived. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park, built on the site of the explosion, serves as a poignant reminder of the horrors of nuclear war and a solemn call for peace. The skeletal remains of the Genbaku Dome, once a bustling exhibition hall, stand as a haunting symbol of the destructive power of nuclear weapons. The stories of the Hibakusha, the survivors of the bombing, are particularly powerful and moving. Their testimonies offer a first-hand account of the horrors of nuclear war and the long-lasting physical and psychological toll it takes on individuals and communities. Their voices serve as a powerful reminder that the consequences of nuclear war extend far beyond the immediate devastation. The bombing of Hiroshima serves as a stark warning about the dangers of nuclear weapons. It underscores the urgent need for international cooperation, dialogue, and disarmament. The proliferation of nuclear weapons, particularly in the hands of unstable actors, poses an existential threat to humanity. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, signed in 1968, has been instrumental in preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. However, the treaty's effectiveness is threatened by states that refuse to join or abide by its provisions. The international community must work together to strengthen the NPT and pursue further disarmament measures. Education and awareness raising are also crucial in the fight against nuclear proliferation. We must teach future generations about the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ensuring that the lessons of the past are not forgotten. By fostering a culture of peace and understanding, we can work towards a future free from the threat of nuclear annihilation. The legacy of Hiroshima demands nothing less.